Imagine this, a quiet Tuesday morning, the air thick with the somber weight of grief. You're walking into a prestigious law firm, expecting the formality of a will reading, a quiet closure after a difficult loss. You brace yourself for paperwork, for shared sorrow, for the expected motions of family legacy. But what if instead of closure, you walked into an ambush? What if the scene that greeted you wasn't just unexpected, but a betrayal so profound it redefined every relationship you thought you understood, shattering the very foundation of your life in an instant? This isn't just a hypothetical. This is the story of Camille Bennett, a woman whose world imploded the moment she pushed open the mahogany door of Patterson and Associates. She expected grief for her recently deceased father-in-law, Harold Bennett. What she found instead was a spectacle that froze her blood. Now, let's unpack that initial shock. Camille sees another woman, a blonde with perfectly styled hair, sitting in her usual chair. And then, the ultimate gut punch. Her husband, Robert, cradling a baby, whispering endearments to it, while the other woman smiles. This isn't just infidelity. It's an overt, public declaration of a secret life, flaunted in the most inappropriate and devastating of settings. The audacity, the sheer disregard for Camille's presence and pain, is breathtaking. For many of us, the concept of betrayal is insidious. It often starts small, with whispers of doubt, fleeting glances, or unexplained absences. But for Camille, this was a full-blown earthquake. It wasn't a discovery she stumbled upon in a hidden text message. It was a scene meticulously orchestrated, a cruel reveal designed to maximize impact. And this particular impact isn't just emotional, it's a direct assault on her identity, her future, and her understanding of reality itself. Think about the psychological toll of such a public shaming. The room falls silent, every head turning towards Camille. In that moment, she's not just a betrayed wife. She's a spectacle, a focal point of pity, judgment, and awkward silence. Her black funeral dress, meant for mourning, suddenly feels like armor she didn't realize she desperately needed. This is a common phenomenon in highly emotional, public betrayals, the intense, almost unbearable pressure of being watched, of having your private agony laid bare for all to see. It compounds the pain, adding layers of humiliation and helplessness. The dress, meant to symbolize respect and sorrow for the deceased, transforms into a symbol of her own impending emotional funeral, a protective shell against a world that has suddenly become hostile. And Robert's reaction? It's almost more infuriating than the act itself. He sounds proud. "I'd like you to meet Sophia. And this," he says, lifting the baby, "is little Benjamin, my son." These words, delivered without guilt or shame, strike Camille like physical blows. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of shared dreams, of planning a future with a white picket fence and children, all crumbling to dust with a casual introduction. This moment highlights a particularly cruel form of gaslighting. Robert is not only presenting his betrayal as a fait accompli, but doing so with an air of entitlement, as if Camille should simply accept this new reality. His lack of remorse is a chilling testament to his self-centeredness, a stark contrast to what we might expect from someone caught in such a damning act. It forces Camille, and indeed anyone witnessing such a scenario, to question not just the betrayal itself, but the entire history of the relationship. Was it all a lie? Was the person she loved ever real? This kind of public revelation is designed to destabilize, to make the victim doubt their own perceptions and worth. The very foundation of her past is being rewritten before her eyes, not by her, but by the perpetrator, with an air of perverse pride. The discomfort in the room is palpable. Attorney Johnson clears his throat, clearly agitated by the unfolding family drama. Robert's sister Patricia and brother James, along with their spouses, sit in stunned silence, their eyes darting between Camille and the scandalous display. This is where the layers of family dynamics start to unravel. The silent witnesses become complicit in the drama, forced to confront a reality that will undoubtedly ripple through their own lives and relationships. The tension isn't just between Camille and Robert. It's a collective discomfort, an unspoken acknowledgement of the destructive force of infidelity within a tightly knit family structure. Camille, gathering a strength she didn't know she possessed, finally speaks. "How long?" she asks, her voice cutting through the tension. Robert, with casual intimacy, shifts the baby and places his free hand on Sophia's shoulder. This gesture speaks volumes. It's a silent confirmation of a deep, established connection, a stark contrast to the shared history he has with Camille. It's a subtle yet potent act of disrespect, an illustration of how completely he has moved on, or perhaps how little he valued what they had to begin with. His dismissive, "Does it matter now?" is another calculated blow, an attempt to minimize her pain and deny her the right to closure or understanding. But Camille's resolute "it matters to me" asserts her agency, her right to know the truth, regardless of how painful it may be. It's a small but significant act of self-preservation, in a moment designed to strip her of all power. She continues, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. "It matters because we buried your father 3 days ago. It matters because I held your hand at his funeral. It matters because I've been your wife for 8 years. These are not just statements of fact. They are anchors, grounding her in the tangible reality of her life and their shared history, directly contrasting Robert's attempts to erase it. She's reminding him of their vows, their public commitments, and the depth of her loyalty, even in the face of his utter disregard. It's a plea for recognition, a desperate attempt to make him acknowledge the weight of his deceit. The juxtaposition of her unwavering presence at his father's funeral against his hidden affair paints a vivid picture of divergent moral compasses. Then Sophia speaks, her voice carrying a slight accent. "Actually, I think what matters is that Robert and I are planning to be married as soon as your divorce is finalized. Harold knew about us. He knew about Benjamin, and he approved." The audacity of this lie is almost comedic, almost unbelievable. It's a calculated attempt to legitimize their affair, to paint Harold as complicit, thereby transferring a moral endorsement onto their actions. But Camille, who knew Harold, immediately recognizes it for what it is, a blatant fabrication. Harold Bennett was stern, traditional, demanding, but above all, he was fair. He had loved Camille like the daughter he never had, guiding her through business decisions when Robert was too preoccupied. This assertion from Sophia is not only disrespectful to Camille but also to Harold's memory, twisting his character to suit their narrative. It's a classic move in manipulative dynamics. Rewrite history, create an alternative reality where the perpetrator is justified and the victim is an obstacle. Camille challenges Robert directly. "Is that what you told her? Is that the story you're going with?" Before Robert can answer, Attorney Johnson interjects, his patience worn thin. The legal proceedings, the formal reading of the will, must continue. This interruption, while practical, also serves as a brief reprieve from the emotional onslaught, a chance for Camille to collect herself before the next act of this bizarre drama unfolds. She looks around the room at her family, Patricia avoiding her eyes, James looking sick, their spouses more interested in their phones. In this pivotal moment, Camille faces a choice: flee the room, escape the humiliation, or sit down and face whatever Harold, a man known for his meticulous plans, had orchestrated. Her decision to sit, spine straight, head held high, is a testament to her inherent strength and resilience. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. This refusal to crumble, to deny them the visual trophy of her despair, is a powerful act of defiance. It's a silent declaration that even in the face of utter devastation, her dignity remains intact. As she settles into the chair, she catches a glimpse of anticipation in Attorney Johnson's eyes. Or perhaps it's just her desperate hope for justice in this room filled with broken promises. The baby fusses, and Robert hands him back to Sophia with practiced ease. This casual domesticity, the intimate dance of a family they built while Camille waited at home, nearly shatters her composure. But Camille Bennett, a survivor of 8 years with a man like Robert, was not weak. She was smart, observant, a planner. She had contingencies, even if she hoped never to use them. Today she had a feeling those survival skills were about to be put to the ultimate test. This premonition isn't just narrative foreshadowing, it's Camille's inner strategist, honed by years of navigating Robert's complexities, sensing the shifting currents of power. She understands that weakness in this moment would be fatal. Attorney Johnson opens the thick folder containing Harold Bennett's will, his weathered hands steady despite the tension. He begins by stating that the document was prepared over several months, with Harold being very specific about conditions and requirements. Robert, still holding Sophia's hand, dismissively tells him to get on with it, confidently asserting, "We all know Dad left everything to me. I'm his only son." This casual arrogance, this assumption of entitlement, is a cornerstone of Robert's character. He believes his position as the biological son inherently grants him access to wealth, regardless of his actions or character. It's a dangerous illusion, often held by those who have never truly faced consequences. Johnson's voice, however, carries a warning edge. "Your father was quite explicit that no one should make assumptions about his intentions." This subtle but firm rebuke immediately signals that Robert's presumptions are misguided. It creates a powerful moment of dramatic irony as the audience and Camille sense that Harold's intentions are anything but straightforward, contrasting sharply with Robert's smug confidence. This is where the story shifts from a personal tragedy to a strategic masterpiece, orchestrated by a man who understood human nature better than his own son. As Johnson begins reading the formal language of the will, Camille barely registers the standard opening. Her focus is sharper now, observing the telltale signs of discomfort and deception in the room. Sophia checking her phone, Robert's nervous leg bouncing, Patricia's red-rimmed eyes. These details are crucial. In moments of high tension, seemingly insignificant gestures can reveal volumes about inner states, unspoken guilt, or suppressed emotions. Camille, the keen observer, is processing everything, filing away information she might need later. She is no longer just a victim. She is an analyst preparing for battle. Then, the first bombshell. "To my daughter-in-law, Camille Bennett, who has shown me the meaning of loyalty and grace." The room went quiet. Even the baby stopped fussing. This is a pivotal turn. The very first beneficiary mentioned isn't the favored son, but the daughter-in-law, and with such heartfelt praise. This immediately undermines Robert's narrative, and indeed, Sophia's presence. Harold is publicly vindicating Camille, not just with words, but with substantial gifts. He leaves her his personal library, valued at $200,000, and his grandmother's jewelry collection, valued at $300,000. These aren't just monetary assets. They are deeply personal, symbolic gifts. The library, his most prized possession, speaks to a shared intellectual connection with Camille. The vintage jewelry represents enduring value and a connection to family history, bypassing Robert's direct line. Camille's heart races. These gifts are not just about money. They are about recognition, about being seen and valued for who she truly is, not just as Robert's wife. Robert's incredulous, "What? That jewelry was supposed to go to my wife," is met with Camille's quiet, pointed retort, "I am your wife." It's a simple statement, yet it carries the full weight of his hypocrisy, reminding him of the vows he broke and the identity he tried to erase. Sophia's mumbled, "Not for much longer," is a desperate, weak attempt to regain control of the narrative. But it's too late. Harold's will is now dictating the terms. Johnson continues. Harold also specified that Camille should receive the lake house in Michigan along with all furnishings and the boat, valued together at approximately $800,000. The lake house. This isn't just a property. It's a sanctuary, a place of shared memories with Harold, a place where she felt seen and heard. It was where Harold taught her to drive the boat, where he listened to her dreams of starting her own consulting business, dreams Robert had likely dismissed or ignored. It signifies a deeper, more profound relationship with her father-in-law than she ever realized. Robert's predictable outrage, "This is insane. Dad wouldn't do this. He wouldn't leave our family property to his daughter-in-law," is met with Johnson's calm, devastating clarification. The woman he specifically mentions in several letters as the daughter I always wanted. This line hits hard. For the first time, tears threaten Camille, but they are not tears of sadness. They are tears of recognition, of profound validation. Harold, the stoic businessman, had seen her, valued her, and loved her, even when his own son failed to. This is a powerful message for anyone who has ever felt overlooked or unappreciated in a relationship, especially when giving so much of themselves. Harold's foresight and love provide Camille with an emotional bedrock, even amidst the wreckage of her marriage. It's a testament to the fact that genuine connection and respect can come from unexpected sources, sometimes even outweighing biological ties. But Harold's provisions don't stop there. Harold established a trust fund in Camille's name to be managed by the bank, ensuring her financial independence regardless of any changes in her marital status. This trust contains $5 million. $5 million. The number hangs in the air, a symbol of freedom, independence, and agency. It's more money than Camille ever dreamed of, enough to ensure she would never again be dependent on anyone. This trust, explicitly designed for her financial independence, is Harold's ultimate gift, a strategic move to safeguard her future against any further betrayals. Robert, pale with shock, mutters about a mistake, demanding Johnson check again. His sense of entitlement is now clashing violently with a reality he never anticipated. He cannot fathom his father disinheriting him in such a way. Johnson, however, is unyielding. Your father was very clear about his reasoning. He left detailed explanations for every decision. Would you like me to read those as well? Camille, eager for further validation, for understanding Harold's profound foresight, immediately responds, yes. She needs to hear Harold's words, to grasp the depth of his perception that led to this elaborate vindication. Johnson pulls out a sealed envelope. Harold wrote individual letters to each beneficiary. This one is addressed to the entire family to be read aloud during the will reading. Harold's distinctive handwriting on the letter itself carries the weight of his presence. As Johnson begins to read, Harold's voice, even from beyond the grave, asserts its authority. To my family, gathered in Johnson's office on what I imagine is a difficult day, I have watched each of you carefully over the years, paying attention not just to your words, but to your actions. Character, I have learned, is not what we say we believe, but what we do when we think no one is watching. This opening statement is a masterclass in moral philosophy and observation. It's a direct challenge to the superficiality and deception that have been rampant in Robert's life. Harold's wisdom, his understanding that true character is revealed in private actions, sets a profound tone. He's not interested in appearances, he's interested in integrity. This resonates deeply, reminding us that our actions, particularly when we believe they are hidden, are the truest reflections of who we are. It's a lesson that transcends the family drama, offering universal insight into human nature. Camille feels her chest tighten. Harold's words, even in death, carry the weight of judgment and wisdom that made him such a formidable figure. He continues, I have seen loyalty, and I have seen betrayal. I have seen grace under pressure, and I have seen selfishness disguised as love. My will reflects not my personal preferences, but my assessment of who can be trusted with the Bennett family legacy. Robert's confidence evaporates. Sophia clutches the baby, her eyes darting nervously. But Camille sits perfectly still, finally understanding the full scope of Harold's perception. He had known everything. This revelation is critical. It transforms Harold from a mere testator to a mastermind. He wasn't just an old man leaving instructions. He was a silent observer, a judge of character, an architect of justice. This level of foresight and control, even from beyond the grave, is both chilling and deeply satisfying. It means Camille was never truly alone, never truly unseen. Someone, her father-in-law, had been watching out for her, understanding the subtle nuances of her husband's deceit long before she had. As Johnson's voice continues reading Harold's letter, Camille's mind drifts back 6 months to the night her world began to crack, their anniversary dinner, Robert glued to his phone with work emergencies. But curiosity, that powerful human instinct, gets the better of her. His phone, left face up, lights up with a message that sends her stomach plummeting. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Baby is kicking so much tonight I think he misses his daddy. From Sophie, with a heart emoji. This moment of discovery is a common narrative in betrayal, but its impact is universally devastating. The blurring words, the bitter taste of champagne, the fading background noise, these are sensory details that heighten the emotional realism of the scene. It's the instant a carefully constructed reality shatters, leaving behind only debris and a gaping void. What's particularly poignant is Camille's reaction. She smiles, nods, plays the role of the devoted wife. But inside, everything has shifted. This act of dissimulation, of maintaining a facade while her inner world collapses, is a survival mechanism, a way to process the shock before confronting the brutal truth. It's a poignant reflection of how many people, when faced with overwhelming betrayal, instinctively resort to outward composure while their internal landscape is in turmoil. Are you listening, Camille? Johnson's voice pulls her back to the present. Harold wrote a specific section for her. She nods, pushing away the memory. There will be time later to process Robert's betrayal. Now, she needs to focus on Harold's words, on the man who saw through his son's lies long before she did. To Camille, who has shown me what it means to love someone unconditionally, even when that love is not returned in kind. You have graced our family with your presence, your intelligence, and your integrity. I have watched you support my son through his failures and celebrate his successes as if they were your own. I have also watched you endure his neglect with a dignity that humbles me. These words are a balm, a powerful antidote to years of subtle neglect and overt betrayal. Harold not only saw her pain, but validated her worth. He recognized her unconditional love, her intelligence, her integrity, and her quiet dignity in the face of Robert's shortcomings. This acknowledgement is profoundly healing. It's a declaration that her sacrifices, her emotional labor, and her unwavering support were not in vain, even if unappreciated by Robert. It's a testament to the fact that even when one person fails to see your value, others might, and their recognition can be a lifeline. Camille closes her eyes, remembering all the excuses she made for Robert, all the lonely family dinners, all the holidays she hosted while he disappeared. You may think I didn't notice when my son began taking you for granted, when he started treating our family gatherings as obligations rather than privileges. But I noticed everything, including the fact that you never complained, never made his family choose between you and him, never stopped showing up with grace and kindness, even when he didn't deserve it. This passage is a masterstroke of parental insight. Harold didn't just notice the affair, he noticed the patterns of disrespect that preceded it, the slow erosion of Robert's commitment to his wife and family. His observations about Camille's unwavering grace and kindness, even when undeserved, underscore her exceptional character. It's a powerful lesson in quiet strength and the long-term impact of consistent integrity. Robert's uncomfortable fidgeting and weak protest, "Dad, he never said anything to me about," are met with Patricia's sharp, shamed voice. "Perhaps because you weren't listening. We all saw it, Robert." This moment signifies a shift in family dynamics. The silent witnesses are now speaking, acknowledging what they too observed, reinforcing Harold's narrative and publicly shaming Robert. Patricia's words confirm that Robert's negligence was not a secret, just unaddressed by others, adding another layer to his culpability. Sophia, however, ever the aggressor, interjects, dripping with false sweetness. This is all very touching, but emotional manipulation doesn't change legal reality. Robert is Harold's son. I'm carrying his grandchild. We're his real family now. This statement is a desperate attempt to reassert her perceived legitimacy and claim to the inheritance, appealing to a purely biological and legalistic interpretation of family. She dismisses the emotional and ethical considerations that Harold so clearly valued. But Attorney Johnson, with neutral expression and sharp eyes, is ready. Actually, Ms. Rivers, Harold was quite specific about addressing that point as well. He flips to another section of the letter. "I have become aware that my son has fathered a child outside his marriage. While I cannot condone this betrayal of his vows, I recognize that the child is innocent of his father's sins. Therefore, I have established a college fund for the child to be accessed when he reaches 18 years of age. However, this gift comes with conditions that reflect my values about responsibility and character." Camille watches the color drain from Sophia's face. A college fund, while generous, is not the life-changing inheritance Sophia clearly expected. This is a brilliant strategic move by Harold, demonstrating both compassion for the innocent child and a firm stance against Robert's irresponsibility. It's a way to provide for his grandson without rewarding the actions that led to his birth. What conditions? Robert asks, his voice barely a whisper. Johnson reads on. The fund will only be accessible if the child's father demonstrates consistent financial support, emotional presence, and moral guidance throughout the child's upbringing. If Robert fails to meet these obligations, the fund will instead be donated to children's charities. This is genius. Harold ensures his grandson's future while simultaneously forcing Robert to be a responsible, consistent father, not just a weekend visitor. It places the onus of responsibility squarely on Robert, making his actions directly consequential to his son's future. It's a powerful lesson in accountability, a true test of character disguised as a benevolent provision. Furthermore, Johnson continues, Harold specified that this college fund is the only provision made for anyone not legally married into the Bennett family at the time of his death. The silence that follows is deafening. Sophia's face goes from pale to red to pale again, her breathing shallow and quick. The baby begins to fuss, sensing his mother's distress. This is the definitive blow to Sophia's hopes, a clear statement from Harold that she holds no legitimate claim to the Bennett legacy beyond what is necessary for the child. It unequivocally establishes Camille's legal and moral standing within the family, effectively shutting down Sophia's attempts to usurp her position. Camille's mind drifts again, this time to another night, 2 months after the anniversary dinner. She had confronted Robert, armed with printouts of text messages, photos, and credit card statements. He had cried, begged for forgiveness, promising to end the affair, swearing it meant nothing. She's just someone I work with, he'd pleaded, holding her hands like a lifeline. It was stupid, meaningless. You're my wife, the only woman I've ever really loved. Many can relate to this moment of desperate pleading and deceptive promises. The victim, wanting to believe, clinging to the shared history, the comfortable silences, the inside jokes. The alternative, accepting that the man she built her life around was a stranger, was too terrifying. She had believed him, hoping to save their 8 years of shared life. He had even deleted Sophia's number in front of her, booked a weekend getaway to reconnect. But he had lied. The baby was proof. Harold had known. Somehow her father-in-law had seen through the performance, the lies, and had acted accordingly. This moment underscores the profound depth of Robert's deception, not just to Camille, but to Sophia and to his own father. It highlights the devastating impact of chronic dishonesty and the painful reality that sometimes love blinds us to truth. Sophia Rivers, clearly unaccustomed to being dismissed, grows more agitated as Johnson continues reading. "This is ridiculous," she bursts out, her accent more pronounced, her composure slipping. "Robert, you said your father liked me. You said he understood about us, about our love." Robert, flustered, tries to backtrack. "I thought he seemed to accept the situation when I explained it to him." "When you explained what exactly?" Camille asks, her voice deadly quiet. Robert, unable to meet her eyes, reveals another layer of his deception. "I told him that our marriage had been over for years, that we were only staying together out of habit. I told him you understood about Sophia, that everyone was in agreement about moving forward amicably." The sheer audacity of this lie takes Camille's breath away. He hadn't just betrayed their marriage. He had actively constructed an elaborate fiction, painting Camille as a willing participant in her own humiliation, a placid bystander to her own destruction. This manipulation, aimed at his own father, is truly despicable, demonstrating Robert's fundamental lack of respect for both women and for the truth. "You told him I knew? You told him I was okay with this?" Camille's incredulity is palpable. Sophia, still holding the fussing baby, leans forward, seemingly happy to share more details of Robert's fabricated story. "Look, I don't want to be cruel, but let's be realistic here. You two haven't been happy for years. Robert tells me you sleep in separate bedrooms, that you barely speak to each other except when necessary." Another lie. Camille and Robert had shared a bedroom until 3 weeks ago, when she finally moved into the guest room after finding a receipt for a romantic dinner on a night he claimed to be working late. The separate bedrooms were a recent development, a boundary she had drawn to protect her dignity, not a symptom of a long-dead marriage. "What else did he tell you about me?" Camille asks, morbidly fascinated by the elaborate fiction. Sophia continues, convinced she's being helpful. "He said you'd grown apart, that you wanted different things, that you were career-focused and didn't want children, while he desperately wanted to be a father. Camille almost laughs. Career-focused? She had put her own professional ambitions on hold for years to support Robert's ventures, turned down job offers, declined promotions. And children? They had been trying to conceive for 3 years, with spreadsheets, invasive fertility tests, and tearful nights. This is the ultimate distortion of reality, twisting Camille's sacrifices into selfish ambition, and Robert's deceit into noble paternal longing. Robert wanted children? Camille asks slowly, her gaze fixed on him. Is that why you told the fertility doctor that you'd been stressed at work? Is that why you said it might take some time for your sperm count to recover? The room goes absolutely silent. Even the baby stops fussing. The mask has completely slipped. This is the moment of ultimate exposure, revealing Robert's cynical manipulation of their most intimate and vulnerable shared goal. "What fertility doctor?" Sophia asks, her voice sharp with suspicion. Robert looks like he wants to disappear. That was before us, when I was still trying to make my marriage work." "Before us?" Sophia's voice rises an octave. "Robert, you told me you hadn't been intimate with your wife in over 2 years. You told me your marriage was over in everything but name." Attorney Johnson clears his throat loudly, attempting to regain control, but Sophia is on a roll, her facade crumbling. "How many times did you lie to me, Robert? How many stories did you tell to make yourself look like the victim?" Robert pleads, "Sophia, please, not here." But she retorts, "No, I think here is perfect." She stands, pacing to the window with the baby. "Because I'm starting to understand that I've been played just as much as your wife has." In this surreal moment, Camille almost feels sorry for Sophia. Almost. Because while Sophia had been lied to, she had also been willing to participate in destroying someone else's marriage, choosing to believe the story that made her feel better about her choices, rather than asking the hard questions. This is a critical distinction in the psychology of betrayal, the active participation, however unwitting, in another's suffering. "When is Benjamin's birthday?" Camille asks suddenly. Sophia, suspicious, answers, "March 15th. Why?" Camille does the math. March 15th means conception in late June or early July, precisely around their anniversary dinner, when she found those first text messages. "Robert," she says softly, "do you remember what we were doing in late June?" His face goes white. "We were at the fertility clinic," Camille continues, her voice growing stronger. "Dr. Martinez had recommended that intensive treatment cycle where we had to time everything perfectly. You complained about the pressure, about having to perform on schedule." "Camille." Robert's voice is a warning, but she is past caring about his comfort. "But you managed to perform just fine, didn't you? Just not with me." Sophia sinks back into her chair, the full, sickening picture becoming clear. "You were actively trying to get your wife pregnant while you were sleeping with me." The baby cries in earnest now, sensing the room's tension. Sophia bounces him mechanically, staring at Robert with undisguised disgust. "I can explain," Robert begins, but Sophia cuts him off. "Don't. Just don't." She looks around the room, seeing not hostility, but pity. "I need some air." As she walks toward the door, she turns back to Camille. "For what it's worth," she says, "I really thought he was telling me the truth about you not loving him anymore, about the marriage being over. I wouldn't have. I'm not that kind of person." Camille nods, believing her. This belief makes the situation even more heartbreaking. They were both victims of Robert's selfish need to have everything without consequences. He was a master manipulator, orchestrating dual realities for both women, each built on an edifice of lies. As the door closes behind Sophia, Attorney Johnson, with a weary expression, asks, "Shall I continue with the will?" Camille straightens her shoulders and nods. Whatever Harold had planned, the show, she sensed, was just getting started. The tension in the room shifts from explosive drama to heavy anticipation. Robert is slumped, his exposed lies a physical weight. Patricia dabs her eyes. James stares out the window. Johnson clears his throat and pulls out another sealed envelope, marked, "To be read only after family dynamics have been revealed." "Your father," Johnson says, looking directly at Robert, anticipated that this meeting would be illuminating. He left specific instructions for me to observe interactions before continuing with the remainder of his will. Camille feels a chill. Harold had orchestrated this entire confrontation, knowing exactly how Robert, Sophia, and the truth would surface. He was playing chess, while everyone else was stuck playing checkers. Even in death, Harold was in control, setting the stage for not just a will reading, but a reckoning. He left this letter to be read after what he called the lies fall away. Johnson opens the envelope. Camille, steady now, says, "Yes." Johnson begins reading in Harold's voice, the words feeling like they are coming directly from the grave. "If you are hearing this letter, it means my son has confirmed what I have suspected for months. Robert, I know about Sophia Rivers, I know about the baby, and most importantly, I know about the elaborate deception you have constructed to justify your betrayal." Robert's head snaps up, wide-eyed with shock. How could he possibly have known? This is the hubris of the deceiver, the belief that their lies are impenetrable, their secrets perfectly kept. But Harold, a successful businessman, understood the importance of intelligence gathering. "I hired a private investigator 6 months ago, not because I wanted to spy on my family, but because I noticed changes in your behavior that concerned me. I watched you lie to your wife, to me, and apparently to your mistress as well. I documented every restaurant, every hotel, every elaborate story you told to cover your tracks." The blood drains from Robert's face. A private investigator. This means Harold had evidence, irrefutable proof of everything Robert thought he had hidden so carefully. This isn't just suspicion, it's a dossier of betrayal, a meticulously compiled record that strips Robert of any ability to deny or deflect. The implications are profound. It means Harold wasn't acting on a whim or a dying grievance. He was acting on documented facts, on a thorough investigation into his son's character. But what concerned me most was not the affair itself, but your complete lack of remorse or responsibility. You didn't just betray your marriage vows, Robert. You betrayed the values I tried to instill in you from childhood. You lied to everyone involved, creating scenarios that painted you as the victim rather than the perpetrator. This is Harold's ultimate indictment. It's not just about the infidelity. It's about the fundamental erosion of character, the abandonment of principles Harold held dear. Robert's manipulative behavior, his consistent victim narrative, is now explicitly called out. Patricia, finally speaking, voices her own realization. "Dad knew. All this time he knew, and he never said anything to any of us." Johnson confirms Harold's strategic approach. Harold was very strategic about gathering information before taking action. The investigator's report is quite comprehensive. He gestures to a thick folder, 300 pages of documentation, including photographs, financial records, and recorded conversations. "Recorded conversations?" Robert's voice cracks. "Yes, Robert. I recorded our phone call where you told me Camille had agreed to an amicable divorce. I recorded the conversation where you claimed she was having an affair with her boss and that you were the wrong party. I have documentation of every lie you told to make yourself look sympathetic while destroying the reputation of the woman who has been nothing but loyal to our family." Camille closes her eyes, overwhelmed by the validation. Harold had known she was innocent, had protected her reputation even when she didn't know it needed protecting. This revelation is profoundly powerful. It means Harold didn't just witness her pain, he actively shielded her, building a defense against the very slanders Robert was spreading. It's a testament to his profound love and respect for Camille, seeing her worth even when his own son sought to diminish it. "I also have recordings of you promising Sophia that you would leave your wife immediately after my death when the inheritance was secure, the same woman you promised your wife you would stop seeing, the same relationship you told me was ending." James mutters, "Oh my God, Robert, what have you done?" But Johnson isn't finished. "Most disturbing of all, I have evidence that you have been accessing Camille's personal accounts to monitor her activities, tracking her phone to make sure she wasn't discovering your affair, and isolating her from her own friends and family to maintain control over the narrative." Camille's breath catches. The phone tracking. So many things suddenly make sense. Robert always knowing where she was, calling minutes after she arrived somewhere unexpected, his ready excuses about her friends. This is not just betrayal. It's an invasion of privacy, a calculated act of surveillance and control. It paints a chilling picture of Robert's insidious manipulation, his willingness to undermine Camille's autonomy and personal safety for his own selfish ends. This level of control, disguised as attentiveness, is a hallmark of deeply manipulative and sometimes abusive behavior. Harold's letter concludes with a stinging indictment. "This is not the man I raised. This is not the husband Camille deserved, and this is certainly not the father I want raising my grandchild." Robert's voice is barely a whisper. "Dad." But then, a flicker of hope, or perhaps a final test of character. "However, I believe in redemption, Robert. I believe people can change if they are faced with real consequences and choose to learn from them. Therefore, the remainder of my will is designed to give you one final chance to prove you are capable of becoming the man you should have been all along." The room falls silent, the ticking of Johnson's antique clock marking the seconds. Camille holds her breath, awaiting Harold's final judgment. This isn't just a will, it's a moral crucible, a structured opportunity for Robert to confront his failures and potentially redeem himself. It's a powerful exploration of the possibility of change, but with a stark recognition that change must be earned through accountability. Harold's business, Bennett and Associates, is worth approximately $23 million. His remaining personal assets total another $12 million. "This inheritance could secure your family's future for generations, Robert," Johnson reads, "but it comes with conditions that will test whether you have truly learned from your mistakes." Robert leans forward, hope flickering in his eyes. "You have 30 days to prove your worthiness to inherit the Bennett legacy. These 30 days will be the most important month of your life, son, because how you spend them will determine not just your financial future, but the future of everyone connected to our family name." Johnson sets the letter aside and pulls out a thick legal document. "These are the conditions Harold established for your inheritance, Robert. They are extensive." As Johnson begins reading, Camille realizes Harold hadn't just written a will. He had written a test, a final chance for his son to choose integrity over selfishness, responsibility over convenience, and truth over comfortable lies. But more than that, Harold had ensured that regardless of Robert's choice, Camille would be protected, financially independent, emotionally vindicated, and free to build whatever life she chose. For the first time since walking into that room, Camille allows herself to smile. The weight of injustice is lifting, replaced by the exhilarating prospect of a future on her own terms. The first condition: Robert must publicly acknowledge his extramarital affair and take full responsibility for his actions. This includes a written apology to be published in the local newspaper, acknowledging the hurt he has caused his wife and family. Robert's face goes ashen. "Published in the newspaper? Dad, that would ruin my reputation in this town." Patricia, sharp and clear, retorts, "Your reputation was ruined the moment you started lying to everyone. At least this way you'd be telling the truth for once." This exchange highlights Robert's enduring concern, not for the pain he caused, but for the impact on his public image. His focus remains entirely on himself, illustrating the depth of his self-absorption. This condition is designed to force genuine accountability, to strip away the facade of respectability he so desperately clung to. Second, Robert must attend weekly marriage counseling sessions with Camille for the full 30-day period, demonstrating genuine effort to understand the impact of his actions. Robert looks at Camille with a mixture of hope and desperation. Would you consider that?" Camille, discerning and cautious, responds, "That would depend entirely on whether you're actually interested in saving our marriage or just saving your money." This is a crucial distinction. True remorse leads to a desire for change and understanding. Mercenary interest leads only to feigned effort. Camille isn't just looking for compliance, she's looking for a fundamental shift in Robert's character. Third, Robert must provide documented proof that he has ended all contact with Sophia Rivers except for matters directly related to child support and custody arrangements for his son. This condition hits Robert hard, forcing him to sever romantic ties if he wants the inheritance. Whatever promises he made to Sophia, they now become collateral damage in his pursuit of wealth. It's a stark choice, demanding a complete break from his deceptive double life. Fourth, All business decisions for Bennett and Associates must be approved by a board consisting of Camille Bennett, Patricia Bennett Morrison, James Bennett, and 3 longtime company employees. Robert would serve as managing partner, but not as sole decision-maker. Camille's eyes widen. Harold is giving her a voice, making her an equal partner in the company's leadership. She had worked alongside the business for years, offered strategy, developed client relationships, all while Robert was preoccupied. Harold had noticed her contributions even when his son hadn't. This condition is a strategic, brilliant move, transforming Robert's absolute power into a shared responsibility and leveraging Camille's proven capabilities. It's an acknowledgement that competence and integrity are more valuable than a mere title. Fifth, Robert must establish and personally fund a college scholarship program for children from single-parent households, contributing $50,000 annually for the next 10 years. $500,000! Robert's voice cracks. James, cold and sharp, reminds him, "Dad, that's less than what you spent on your affair. I've seen the credit card statements, Robert. The hotels, the restaurants, the gifts. You found money for that easily enough." This financial obligation is a form of restorative justice, forcing Robert to redirect his lavish spending on infidelity towards a benevolent social cause, specifically addressing a demographic that might relate to the challenges of an absent parent. Sixth, Robert must undergo financial counseling and create a transparent budgeting system that accounts for every dollar spent, with monthly reports submitted to the board of directors. The conditions keep coming, each one more specific and demanding. Community service, parenting classes before custody visits with his son, psychological counseling to address patterns of deception and manipulation. Harold is leaving no stone unturned, addressing every facet of Robert's flawed character. These are not merely punitive measures, but structured pathways to genuine self-improvement and accountability, a comprehensive rehabilitation program designed by a man who understood the depths of his son's issues. The final condition, heavy with significance. Robert must prove his commitment to rebuilding trust by signing a post-nuptial agreement that ensures Camille's financial security, regardless of what happens to their marriage. "What kind of post-nuptial agreement?" Robert asks wearily. Johnson pulls out another document. If Robert inherits the business and subsequently divorces Camille for any reason other than her adultery or abandonment, she would receive 50% of all business assets, plus ongoing alimony of $20,000 per month for life. $20,000 per month for life. This number hangs in the air like a thunderclap. It's more than most people earn in a salary, and it continues whether Camille remarries or not. It's a guarantee of absolute financial security, a final protective shield against any future financial machinations Robert might attempt. On the other hand, Johnson continues, if Robert fails to meet any of these conditions within 30 days, the entire inheritance passes to a charitable trust managed by Camille, with the exception of a modest annual stipend for Robert's basic living expenses. How modest? Robert asks, already knowing he won't like the answer. $36,000 per year, enough to live on, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle you're accustomed to. And $36,000 a year is less than Robert spent on his car payment and golf club membership combined. It would be a dramatic fall from luxury. There's one more thing. Harold wrote individual responses to what he anticipated would be Robert's reactions. Johnson reads, "Robert, if you are thinking that these conditions are unfair or excessive, I want you to understand something. Fairness is giving Camille 30 days to decide whether you deserve forgiveness. Fairness is offering you a chance to prove you can change instead of simply writing you out of my will entirely. Fairness is ensuring that your son will be provided for regardless of your choices." Robert sits in stunned silence, the weight of his father's judgment settling over him. "But if you choose to reject these conditions, if you decide that your pride is more important than your family, then you will have proven that I was right to doubt your character. The choice is yours, son. 30 days to show me the man I always hoped you could become." Johnson closes the letter. Robert has until 5:00 p.m. today to decide. If he refuses, the charitable trust takes effect immediately. Camille holds her breath. Everything hinges on this moment, on Robert's choice between accountability and walking away from responsibility. The clock ticks loudly, marking the seconds until Robert must decide not just his financial future, but the kind of man he wants to be. As the weight of Harold's conditions settles, Camille feels something new, control over her own destiny. She had been reactive, responding to Robert's lies. Now, Harold's will has changed everything. "Johnson," she says quietly, "could I speak with you privately for a moment?" Robert looks up sharply, but Camille interrupts his protest. "What I'm thinking is that I need to understand my options before you make your decision." Johnson nods, leading her to a smaller conference room. As they leave, Robert starts arguing with his siblings. Camille tunes him out. She has more important things to focus on. Once the door closes, Johnson's professional demeanor softens. "Your father-in-law spoke about you often, Camille. He was very fond of you." "Fond enough to trust me with his business empire if Robert fails this test," she says, still processing the magnitude of Harold's actions. "More than that, Harold believed you had the intelligence and integrity to run Bennett and Associates better than his son ever could. He mentioned several times that you understood the clients, that you had good instincts for investments, that people trusted you." Camille thinks about all the times she attended company functions, built relationships with clients who seemed more comfortable talking to her than to Robert. She had always assumed she was just being a supportive wife. But maybe Harold had seen something more. "Can I ask you something honestly?" she says. "Do you think Robert will accept these conditions?" Johnson pauses, choosing his words carefully. "I think Robert will do whatever serves Robert's interests. The question is whether he's capable of understanding what his real interests should be. And if he doesn't accept, then you become one of the wealthiest women in the state, with complete control over a business empire and the freedom to do whatever you think is best with it." The idea is both thrilling and terrifying. Camille had always been capable, but she had spent 8 years supporting someone else's dreams. The thought of suddenly being responsible for 200 employees and millions of dollars in client investments is overwhelming. "Harold left one more thing for you," Johnson says, pulling a small envelope from his briefcase. "He said to give this to you only if you seemed ready to hear it." Camille opens it with trembling fingers. Inside is a handwritten note in Harold's distinctive script. "My dear Camille, if you are reading this, it means you have survived the worst betrayal a wife can endure, and you have done so with the grace and dignity I have always admired in you. I want you to know that regardless of what Robert chooses, you are not a victim. You are a survivor, and you are stronger than you know. I have watched you handle difficult clients with patience, navigate family politics with wisdom, and support my son even when he didn't deserve it. You have all the skills necessary to run this business, but more importantly, you have the character to do it right. Don't let anyone convince you that you are not capable of this responsibility. Don't let Robert's failures define your future, and don't let fear keep you from claiming the life you deserve. You were never just my daughter-in-law, Camille. You were the daughter I always wanted, and I am proud to trust you with my legacy. With love and confidence in your strength, Harold." Tears blur Camille's vision as she reads the letter twice, 3 times, letting Harold's words sink into her heart. He had seen her potential when she couldn't see it herself, believed in her capabilities when she was too busy doubting herself. "There's something else you should know," Johnson says gently. "Harold established a separate account for you 6 months ago, $50,000 for legal fees, counseling, or anything else you might need during this transition period. He wanted to make sure you had resources regardless of Robert's decision." $50,000. Harold had been planning her independence for months, ensuring she would never be trapped or desperate, never forced to stay in a marriage because she couldn't afford to leave. "He really thought of everything, didn't he?" Camille says, wiping her eyes. "Harold was a strategist. He believed in preparing for every possible outcome," Johnson replies. "He also believed you were capable of handling whatever Robert threw at you. I think he was right." When they return to the main office, the family is in heated discussion. Patricia argues for acceptance, James for protecting the family reputation. Robert looks caught between impossible choices. "Have you made your decision?" Johnson asks. Robert's eyes settle on Camille. "I need to know something first. If I accept these conditions, if I do everything Dad asked, would you really consider working on our marriage?" Camille studies his face, searching for genuine remorse. "I would consider it," she says carefully, "but only if you were doing it because you wanted to be a better husband, not because you wanted to keep your inheritance." "How would I prove that to you?" Robert asks. "By accepting the conditions even if I said no to counseling. By choosing to be a better man regardless of whether it benefits you personally." Robert is quiet for a long moment, the weight of that challenge settling over him. Could he choose integrity for its own sake? Could he face public embarrassment? Could he give up control of the business he always assumed would be his? "I need more time," he says finally. "You have until 5 p.m. And Johnson reminds him, "Harold was very specific about the deadline." As Robert struggles, Camille feels a strange sense of peace. Whatever he chose, she would be fine. More than fine, she would be free. Free to build a life based on her own values, her own goals, her own definition of happiness. For the first time in months, the future looks bright. By 4:30, Robert is in a state of barely controlled panic. He's been pacing, making frantic phone calls, trying to negotiate the non-negotiable. "This is extortion," he says for the third time. "Dad is trying to control my life from the grave." Patricia, her patience thin, retorts, "Your father is trying to give you a chance to prove you've learned from your mistakes. The fact that you see accountability as extortion tells us everything we need to know about your character." Robert snaps back, "Easy for you to say. You got your inheritance free and clear. You didn't have to jump through hoops or humiliate yourself in public." Patricia fires back, "I also didn't betray my spouse and lie to my family for months. Maybe that's why Dad trusted me with his gift." Camille watches the exchange with growing clarity. Even faced with consequences, Robert's primary concern is his own comfort and reputation. He isn't wrestling with guilt for the pain he caused. He's angry about being held accountable. 5 minutes, Johnson announces. "Robert," James says quietly, "just accept the conditions. Apologize to Camille. Go to counseling. Run the business with oversight. It's not the end of the world." "You don't understand," Robert says, his voice rising. "The newspaper apology alone would destroy my credibility with clients. How am I supposed to manage investments for people who know I'm a cheater and a liar?" "Maybe by proving you can change," Camille suggests. "Maybe by showing them that you're capable of taking responsibility for your mistakes." Robert stares at her as if she suggested he walk on water. "You really think people will respect me more after I publicly humiliate myself?" "I think people might respect you more if you showed some genuine remorse instead of just complaining about the consequences." The clock ticks towards 5 p.m. Camille finds herself hoping Robert will make the choice that reveals his true character. If he accepts grudgingly, focused only on preserving his inheritance, it would tell her everything about his motivations. If he rejects them entirely, it would free her from any remaining obligation to save their marriage. "Time," Johnson announces as his watch hits 5 p.m. "Exactly." Robert stands frozen, face pale. "I need your answer, Robert," Johnson says gently. "Accept the conditions as written, or forfeit your inheritance to the charitable trust." "This isn't fair," Robert says, but his voice lacks conviction. He's run out of alternatives. "Actually," Camille says, standing up, "I'd like to say something before Robert decides." The room goes quiet, all eyes on her. 8 years ago, I married a man I thought I knew. Someone I believed shared my values about honesty, commitment, and building a life together. For months, I've been trying to figure out where that man went, how the person I loved could have become someone capable of such elaborate deception. She looks directly at Robert, her voice steady and clear. "But sitting here today, listening to you complain about accountability instead of showing remorse for your actions, I realized something important. You didn't change. I just finally saw who you really were." Robert's mouth opens to protest, but Camille holds up a hand. "Harold's conditions aren't punishment, Robert. They're a gift. They're an opportunity for you to become the man you should have been all along. But if you can't see that, if you're more concerned about your reputation than about the people you've hurt, then you've already made your choice." She turns to Johnson. "Whatever Robert decides, I want you to know that I'm grateful for Harold's faith in me. I'm ready to honor his legacy, whether that's by supporting Robert's efforts to change or by taking on the responsibility he's chosen to reject." The confidence in her voice surprises even her. 6 months ago, running a business empire would have terrified her. Now, it feels like a natural next step, a chance to use skills she had been developing without even realizing it. Robert stares at her, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. "You want me to fail," he says accusingly. "You want me to reject the conditions so you can take everything?" "No, Robert. I want you to succeed. I want you to choose growth over comfort, honesty over convenience, accountability over self-pity. But I'm not going to beg you to make the right choice anymore. That's something you have to want for yourself." The silence stretches, heavy with 8 years of history and broken promises. Robert starts, then stops, the decision crushing him. Johnson clears his throat. "I need a definitive answer, Robert. Do you accept Harold's conditions, or do you forfeit your inheritance?" Robert looks around the room one last time, his gaze landing on Camille's calm, resolute expression. He begins. Then his shoulders sag in defeat. "I can't do it. I can't put myself through that humiliation, that loss of control. I'm sorry, but I can't accept those conditions." The words hang in the air like a final judgment. Johnson nods, making a note in his file. Then, according to Harold's will, the entire Bennett estate passes to the charitable trust managed by Camille Bennett, effective immediately. And just like that, Camille's life changed forever. The moment the words left Robert's mouth, the reality of what he had done seemed to hit him. The color drained from his face as he stared at Johnson's pen. "Wait," Robert said, his voice cracking. "Wait, I change my mind?" Johnson looks up, his expression neutral, but final. "Harold was very specific about this, Robert. He said the decision had to be made at 5 p.m. and it had to be final. No second chances, no reconsiderations." "But I didn't understand the full implications," Robert starts. Patricia cuts him off. "You understood perfectly," she says coldly. "You just thought you could find a way around taking responsibility for your actions." Robert spins toward Camille, desperation in his eyes. "Camille, please. You can't seriously want to take everything from me. We can work this out between us, can't we? Without lawyers and conditions and public humiliation." Camille studies his face, seeing not remorse but panic at losing control of his comfortable life. "What exactly are you proposing, Robert?" We could get divorced quietly. I could give you a fair settlement, and you could sign over the business to me. We could both walk away with dignity." The audacity of his suggestion leaves her speechless. Even now, after rejecting his father's generous conditions, Robert is trying to negotiate a deal that benefits him primarily. "A fair settlement?" she asks quietly. "How much did you have in mind?" Robert's relief is visible. "I was thinking maybe $1 million. That's more than enough for you to start fresh. Maybe buy a nice house somewhere." "$1 million?" Camille repeats thoughtfully. "Out of a $35 million estate?" Robert shifts uncomfortably. "Well, when you put it like that, maybe $2 million. That's still incredibly generous, Camille. Most divorces don't result in that kind of settlement." James makes a disgusted sound. "Robert, do you even hear yourself? You're trying to buy your way out of consequences with money that isn't even yours anymore." Camille holds up a hand, her expression thoughtful. "Let me make sure I understand your proposal, Robert. You want me to give up $35 million plus control of a successful business, plus the respect and trust Harold showed in me, in exchange for $2 million and your promise to divorce me quietly." "I'm trying to be reasonable here," Robert says, missing the dangerous edge in her voice. "You never wanted to run a business anyway. You're not cut out for that kind of pressure." Those words are the wrong thing to say. Camille's expression hardens. "You're right about one thing, Robert. I never wanted to run a business. But that was when I thought I was building a life with a partner, someone who valued my contributions and respected my intelligence. Now I realize I was just supporting someone who saw me as an accessory to his success." She stands, moving to the window. "Harold saw something in me that you never did. He trusted me with his legacy because he believed I could handle it. And you know what? He was right. Camille, please be reasonable." "I am being reasonable," she says, turning back. "I'm being more reasonable than you deserve, because I'm not going to use this power to destroy you, Robert. I'm going to use it to build something better." The panic in Robert's eyes turns to desperate anger. "You can't do this," he says, his voice rising. "I'll fight it. I'll challenge the will, claim undue influence or mental incompetence. Dad wasn't thinking clearly at the end." Johnson's voice cuts through his threats. Actually, Harold anticipated that reaction as well. He underwent a complete psychological evaluation 2 weeks before his death, specifically to prevent any challenges to his mental competence. The evaluation is part of the court record. Then I'll claim Camille manipulated him, turned him against his own son. With what evidence? Johnson asks calmly. The private investigator's report clearly shows that you were the one engaging in deceptive behavior. Harold's decision was based on documented facts, not emotional manipulation. Robert looks wildly around the room, searching for an ally. His sister is disgusted. His brother is concerned only with reputation. His wife is calmly planning a future without him. "What about Sophia?" he asks suddenly. "What about my son? You can't punish an innocent child because you're angry at me." "I'm not punishing anyone," Camille says. "Harold established a college fund for Benjamin, remember? As long as you're a responsible father to him, he'll be provided for. But that fund isn't affected by your decision to reject the inheritance. A college fund isn't enough to support them until then. I have responsibilities, child support payments." "Then I suggest you find a job," Patricia says sharply, "like the rest of us have to do when we need money." The reality finally sinks in. Robert will be starting over at 35 with no business, no inheritance, and $36,000 a year. He'll have to find work, probably for someone else, doing something that doesn't require the reputation and connections he just sacrificed. "This is insane," he mutters, slumping. "My whole life, I was told the business would be mine someday. Everything I did was building toward taking over Dad's legacy." "Then maybe you should have acted like someone worthy of that legacy," Camille says, not unkindly, but without sympathy. "Harold gave you every opportunity to prove yourself, Robert, even gave you a final chance today. You chose your pride over your family, your comfort over your character." "And what happens now?" Robert asks, his voice hollow. Camille looks at Johnson. "What exactly does managing a charitable trust involve? You would work with the board of directors to allocate funds to various causes, oversee the business operations to ensure continued profitability, and basically carry on Harold's vision of using wealth to benefit the community and the business itself. You would be the primary decision maker, though Harold's will suggests maintaining the existing management structure where possible. Most of the employees are excellent at their jobs. They just need leadership that prioritizes integrity over short-term profit." Camille nods, feeling a sense of rightness. "Then that's what I'll do. I'll honor Harold's trust in me and try to build something that would make him proud." She looks at Robert one final time, seeing not the man she married, but a stranger. "I hope you find a way to be happy, Robert. I really do. But it won't be at my expense anymore." 6 months later, Camille stands in the conference room of Bennett and Associates, looking at the faces of employees who have become more like family. The quarterly meeting is about to begin, and she feels the familiar mix of nervousness and excitement that comes with leadership responsibilities she is still learning to embrace. "Before we review the numbers," she says, "I want to share some news that I think will make Harold proud." The room quiets. Harold's memory is still strong here. "Our scholarship program for single-parent families has funded education for 47 children this year. Our community investment fund has helped 12 local businesses get started or expand, and our client satisfaction ratings are at an all-time high." The applause is genuine and warm. These people have watched Camille transform from a hesitant inheritor into a confident leader who makes decisions based on long-term value and ethics. "But most importantly," she continues, "we've proven that running a business with integrity doesn't mean sacrificing success. Our profits are up 18% this year, and we've added 32 new clients who specifically chose us because of our reputation for ethical practices." As the meeting continues, Camille thinks about her journey. The pain of Robert's betrayal was devastating, but it had also been the catalyst for discovering strength she hadn't known she possessed. Robert found work at a smaller investment firm in the next town, making a fraction of what he was used to, but apparently learning to live within his means. He was consistent with child support and saw Benjamin every other weekend, slowly building the father-son relationship Harold envisioned. Sophia moved back to her home state, making co-parenting complicated but healthier. The confrontation in Johnson's office had been a wake-up call for her too, leading her to make different choices about the men she dated. Patricia became one of Camille's closest advisors, and James, surprisingly, asked for a more active role in the charitable trust, channeling his financial skills toward meaningful causes. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago, quietly and without drama. Robert signed the papers without argument, perhaps finally understanding that fighting Camille would only result in more public exposure. After the meeting, Camille remains in the conference room, looking at Harold's portrait. She commissioned it from a local artist, wanting to honor the man who saw her potential. "Thank you," she whispers to the painting, as she does most days. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. She almost ignores it, but something makes her check. "Hi, Camille. This is Sophia. I hope it's okay that I got your number from Robert. I wanted to thank you for not fighting the college fund for Benjamin. I also wanted to say, I'm sorry for my part in what happened. You didn't deserve any of that. I hope you're doing well." Camille stares at the message, then types back, "Thank you for reaching out. I hope you and Benjamin are happy and healthy. That's what matters most." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was peace. The anger that had sustained her through the worst months was finally giving way to something healthier, acceptance of the past and excitement about the future. As she prepares to leave, her assistant knocks. "There's someone here to see you. Says he's from the community college about the scholarship program." "Send him in," Camille says. But the man who walks through the door isn't from the college. He's tall, in his early 40s, with kind eyes and a smile that reaches them. He carries a folder and wears the slightly rumpled look of someone who spends more time thinking about important things than worrying about his appearance. "Miss Bennett, I'm Dr. Michael Torres from the college, but I'm actually here about something else. I run a nonprofit that helps people transition out of difficult life situations, divorce, job loss, family crisis. I've been following your work with the charitable trust, and I wondered if you might be interested in partnering on a new program." Camille gestures for him to sit, intrigued despite herself. "What kind of program?" "Financial literacy and emotional support for people rebuilding their lives after major setbacks. A lot of people in crisis don't just need money, they need skills and confidence to create sustainable independence." As Dr. Torres outlines his vision, Camille leans forward with interest. It's exactly the kind of work Harold would have supported, practical help that addresses real problems with dignity and respect. "I'd love to hear more," she says. "Could we continue this conversation over dinner sometime?" The invitation surprises them both. Camille hadn't thought about dating, hadn't even considered the possibility of sharing her new life with someone. But there's something about Dr. Torres, his passion, his thoughtful approach, his obvious integrity, that reminds her what it feels like to be genuinely interested in another person. "I'd like that very much," he says, his smile widening. "But I should warn you, I'm more of a coffee shop than fine dining kind of person." "Perfect," Camille laughs. "I've had enough of fancy restaurants for a lifetime." As she walks him to the elevator, Camille catches a glimpse of herself in the polished metal doors. The woman looking back at her is confident, successful, and genuinely happy. She is someone Harold would be proud to call daughter. 6 months ago, her life had imploded. Today, she is building something new and meaningful from the ashes of her old dreams. The future stretches ahead, full of possibilities she is finally brave enough to explore. Robert made his choice that day, prioritizing his pride over his family. But in doing so, he had freed Camille to make her own choices about her career, her values, her relationships, and her definition of success. Harold had been right. She was stronger than she knew. And now, finally, she was ready to prove it, not just to others, but to herself. The elevator doors close, taking Dr. Torres back to his world of helping people rebuild their lives, but Camille has a feeling their paths will cross again soon, in the best possible way. After all, she is an expert now in the art of new beginnings. The lesson from Camille's story is profound and multifaceted. Firstly, it teaches us that true strength often emerges from the deepest valleys of betrayal. Camille didn't crumble. She rose, not out of bitterness, but out of an inherent dignity and a surprising wellspring of resilience. This resilience is not the absence of pain, but the ability to feel that pain fully and still choose to move forward, to build and to thrive. It's a testament to the human spirit's capacity to heal and redefine itself after unimaginable setbacks. We often hear phrases like, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And while simplistic, Camille's journey embodies a deeper truth. Facing profound injustice and choosing to meet it with integrity and intelligence fundamentally alters one's character, forging an inner steel that was perhaps dormant before. Secondly, this narrative underscores the critical importance of character over convenience and accountability over denial. Robert's ultimate downfall wasn't just his affair, it was his unwavering refusal to take genuine responsibility for his actions, his pathological need to portray himself as a victim, even when confronted with irrefutable evidence. Harold's meticulously crafted will served as a moral mirror, reflecting Robert's true self back at him, forcing a choice between painful growth and comfortable self-deception. Robert chose the latter, demonstrating that without a fundamental shift in one's moral compass, external pressures, even the threat of losing immense wealth, cannot compel true change. This is a powerful reminder that consequences, while often feared, are essential for personal growth and societal justice. Without accountability, there is no redemption, only repeated patterns of destructive behavior. Thirdly, the story is a celebration of quiet observation and profound mentorship. Harold Bennett, a man who built an empire, possessed an acute understanding of human nature. He saw Camille's worth, her intelligence, her integrity, and her potential, even when his own son was blind to it. His actions, from the private investigation to the specific empowering provisions in his will, were not just acts of generosity, but acts of visionary leadership. He didn't just leave wealth, he left a legacy of values, trusting it to the person who best embodied them, regardless of bloodline. This challenges conventional notions of inheritance, suggesting that true legacy is earned through character, not merely inherited by birthright. It's a powerful affirmation for anyone who feels unseen or undervalued, a reminder that genuine merit and consistent virtue do not go unnoticed indefinitely. Sometimes, the most influential mentors are those who watch silently, intervening only when the time is right, setting the stage for your own emergence. Finally, Camille's journey is an inspiring blueprint for new beginnings and self-discovery. Her betrayal, while devastating, became the unexpected catalyst for her own liberation. Freed from a deceptive marriage and empowered by Harold's trust and resources, she steps into a role she never envisioned, embracing her leadership skills, her business acumen, and her compassionate nature. She doesn't just manage a charitable trust, she transforms it into a force for good, aligning it with Harold's vision and her own values. Her ability to forgive Sophia, to move towards peace rather than perpetual anger, illustrates a profound emotional maturity. And her openness to a new relationship with Michael Torres, a man of integrity and purpose, signals a complete embrace of her future, not as a victim of her past, but as the architect of her own destiny. The ultimate takeaway is this: betrayal can shatter a life, but it doesn't have to define it. It can, in fact, be the very crucible in which one's true strength, purpose, and capacity for new beginnings are forged. Camille Bennett's story is a powerful testament to the idea that even from the deepest ashes of heartbreak, a life of profound meaning, independence, and authentic happiness can be built piece by resilient piece. It is a story of choosing self-worth over suffering, integrity over illusion, and courageously claiming the life you truly deserve. And in doing so, not only do you transform your own world, but you also create a ripple effect, inspiring others to find their own path to self-liberation and authentic leadership.